You're listening to the all-new CultureCast, Chicagoland's finest podcast.
Welcome, boys and girls, to the newest edition of the all-new CultureCast. I am the Gorehound, and with me is...
I'm Nick!
There we go. So this week, we are going to be taking it in a little bit of a different direction. Actually, I think every single week we take it in a different direction.
Yes, we've been doing a lot of new wacky things lately.
Yeah, not a whole lot of just individual movie reviews, but we are talking about what the F is culture. Since we are the all-new CultureCast,
yes,
let's figure out what it is and what we actually talk about.
Yeah, what are we talking about? I never know week to week. Today we're looking at the general concept of culture, what it is, and how we relate to it, or why it's important. Yeah. So, I guess there's a lot of different things we can cover. I mean, do you want to start us off, Gorehound?
Yeah, I had originally thought of this topic because I was talking with one of my coworkers who is an archaeologist, and his title, that's basically the work that he does, but his title is Cultural Resources Specialist. And I'm like, I do a podcast talking about culture, and we just talk about movies and video games and TV, and this guy's title is Cultural Resources Specialist, but we don't ever talk about the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I was like, how is that the same thing? And it just kind of got me thinking that culture is a very varied topic. Yeah, that's what basically got me thinking about it.
We definitely focus more on pop culture on our podcast in terms of, as you mentioned, like video games and movies and TV shows and the like. So, but culture is just so much more than just that. I mean, there's things like art and language and other things. That's a horrible definition I just gave there. Beliefs and what our knowledge is and our customs. Culture is such a wide, vast thing. Your coworker, what sort of things does she deal?
It's a guy.
It's a guy. What sort of things does he deal with in terms of culture?
He can identify anything from like any generation, any age, whether it was like 2,000 years old or like 15,000 years old, or if it was like their last year. He can like identify any types of pottery, or he calls them sherds, but they're just pottery shards. Sometimes he comes across bones of like, I don't know, like some animal or like a fossilized seed. Wow. And it's just crazy because it's just, oh my gosh, it's such a different job that I can't even imagine.
It sounds like some anthropology thrown in there too.
Oh yeah, he's crazy good at what he does. So I was like, I'm not that good.
Well, he's definitely talking about a different kind of culture compared to what we generally talk about. So it's a very wide casting net when it comes to culture. It's almost difficult just to keep it general, I would say.
Yeah, trying to think of what it actually is so vague. Mm-hmm. But what I kind of thought it as is it's kind of what makes our society what it is at certain points. Because right now, there's a lot of different things going on in our culture. Yeah. You know, superhero movies, that Beyonce thing, whatever is going on with that.
Oh yeah,
it's defining our culture at this point. It's saying this is what is happening with society. Not that necessarily we approve or disapprove of it, just that that's what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's what we're thinking about, what's on our minds. And, you know, in the 90s, we were all thinking about, you know, Nirvana and, you know, a plethora of other things that really defined what was going on at that point.
Email culture was becoming big around the 90s. Like, what is email? And
Yeah.
now we just take it for granted. It's weird to think that there was a time where our culture was completely devoid of of something that is very commonplace nowadays.
Right. It was just a thought at that point.
Hmm.
And now it's blossomed into an industry, a way of life. And what is your perception of culture, and what do you think it is?
Culture is pretty much what we make of it. It's constantly evolving. There are certain trends in a people's background that define their particular culture. Uh, Things like black culture, Hispanic culture are very, very different from one another. And
Hmm.
there are some things that might have some crossover, but might generally be confined or identified with one particular ethnicity. At the same time, there's national culture, the things we do here in our country,
Yeah.
things
America.
America, uh, the stereotypes, so to speak, of we eat hot dogs and burgers, and well, you don't because you're a vegetarian, but the general gist of it, and we blow off firecrackers and we have our pickup trucks, is sort of a thought of American culture, whereas opposed to England, they're all crumpets and drinking
Right.
tea at 4 p.m., which I know I'm playing on stereotypes, but those stereotypes tend to have some root in the culture that it's actually stereotyping, um,
Hmm.
and it's just a part of who we are, and it's constantly evolving to the point that uh, culture is never a stationary thing. Um, I'm looking here on the Wikipedia page for just the term culture, and the Cambridge English Dictionary states that culture is the way of life, especially the general customs and beliefs of a particular group of people at a particular time. So,
Hmm.
American culture today versus American culture 100 years ago versus American culture that will be 100 years from now are going to be very, very different from one another, but it's all the
Hmm.
same American culture.
Right. Yeah, and I do think the culture is associated with a certain thing. Culture isn't going to stand on its own. Like you said, you have Hispanic or white culture. It's associated with something, whether it's pop culture or social culture.
Hmm.
So it can't just stand on its own, and it kind of defines whatever it's being associated with.
Hmm. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but at the end of the day, it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah, whether we like it or not. Um, you know, yeah.
With Within our own culture, there are several subcultures that can be talked about, I would imagine. Like, we have a huge American culture. Let's just, for clarity and for simplicity, let's just call it American culture.
Yeah.
Within there are a lot of subcultures. Like, you have people who are, think of your high school cliques. You had the nerds, you had the jocks,
Mhm.
you had the hipsters, you had the goths,
Mhm.
and they're all elements or all parts of the overall cultural pool, but they carve out their own little identity that is strictly theirs. And
Mhm.
people identify with this. Sometimes they swap different cultural identities just because they can, and why not? So it's interesting to see these things typically evolve. That being said, there are a lot of subcultures, and those keep evolving kind of over time. And I don't think you could say like culture is ever going to be fixed in terms of staying the same because it's going to evolve. Like
Mhm.
for going back to movies and pop culture, you have the superhero genre, which you can argue got started in the late 70s with the Superman movie, got kicked into high gear with Tim Burton's Batman movie, and then took a little bit of a rest in the late 90s. And then once X-Men hit and then Spider-Man, it started to ramp up a little bit. And now we can't go a month without a new superhero movie coming out
Mhm.
because those things have really ramped up. And over time, eventually, despite what the internet says, the superhero movies will fall out of favor and get replaced by something else.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just how the nature of things. It's like how the Western
Yeah.
was huge and it had a good long run, but then people got tired of it and got moved on to a new thing.
Hmm. Yeah, and like superhero movies right now, is you can say that they're all the same with respect to culture because they are just all very action packed, very big budget,
Hmm.
and it really makes them the same. But and that's certainly different from superhero movies in the 90s, where at that point you would say, well, yeah, they all were pretty much the same probably at that point in time. At that point also.
Yeah, given what you can do with the tech and everything. So
But then once you leave the that period which is typifying them, it looks a lot different than when you resided in that time.
true. That is true.
What is our relationship with culture? How are yeah. I mean, I'll take a stab at it. What is the Gorehound's relationship with culture? Is I'm completely delved into it.
Hmm.
Um, there's a new movie coming out. I'm gonna go watch it, without question. If there's a new band out, I'm gonna find a way to listen to it, and I'm gonna talk about it also because I don't want to keep these thoughts to myself.
Hmm.
So I myself am propagating these new ideas, which eventually, in a few months are going to pass out. But at this point in time, this week, I talked about these movies, which really defined this week in time. So,
Yeah, I think relationship with culture is always going to be there. You can't, even if you ignore it, you're being counterculture.
mhm.
And
At any point in time, we are 100% engrossed in the culture of the moment,
yes,
and
exactly.
there's really no escaping it. And so it's basically however you react to it, whether you're embracing it, whether you're rejecting it, you're doing something about it.
Hmm. Yeah, you can't escape it. It's impossible. It's utterly
Hmm.
impossible. Not everyone's going to know what's going on with Jay-Z and Beyonce, but
Yeah.
there are going to be other elements of culture because culture is so huge. No one's ever going to know everything about it. They're not. I mean, you know all about horror films.
Hmm.
I that is not my knowledge base in terms of
Yeah.
knowing elements of culture or pop culture.
Yeah.
But whatever you do, whatever you're into, you're contributing to the culture of our society by being an interested party and to be interested in what's going on.
Hmm. So yeah, I could say that, I'm throwing in my vote for the horror movies of my time
Hmm.
by watching them, by talking about them, by giving them my money. It's me giving them one vote. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right on.
So,
Exactly.
um, so what do you think of the all new Culture Cast as um, um, what's the all new cast relationship with culture?
It's a blanket statement for us to talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about.
Yeah.
um, I'm going to be honest with you. This podcast started as a movie podcast, especially in its earlier form. But it's such a meaningless title when you get down to it, like the Culture Cast. Nothing about that screams we're
Mhm.
a movie podcast. So it's kind of one of the reasons I think we've been doing more general pop culture sort of things to embrace
Hmm.
our name. But I don't know. I think I'm sorry. What was
But
your
it is
question?
it no, no,
I
it
don't
is, I mean
remember.
it is a challenge to really. This did not start off as a culture podcast,
Mm-mm.
but you didn't want to change the name, and you took the challenge on of well, let's make it about culture, and
Yeah.
so we did. And the challenge is what keeps us moving forward. We're not going to be lazy and just talk about the same thing, but
Well.
in a sense, we are talking about the same thing every single week.
Yeah.
But it's very different to us, and hopefully different to our listeners
Well, we need to get listeners in order for them to.
to
Are
have an
you
opinion.
if for those of you who are listening, drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you and what your take on culture is. But yeah, I mean, I guess our impact on culture, if you can call it that, is that we're sort of like looking at it hopefully analytically,
Mm-hmm.
and ideally offering a new perspective, or maybe to reaffirm a potential listener's perspective on what they see. Just looking back at some of the podcasts we've done over the past couple of weeks, we've done, kind of branched out, trying different things. We did the video game one last week. The week before that, we had one on things that we like, and then we had things that we didn't like, and we looked at trends in cinema. We looked at C2E2. We did the two X-File podcasts. Um, so we've done, and then of course we've had a variety of movies that we've looked at. So we've done quite a bit of different
Yeah.
things.
I find that podcasts, in general, are kind of speakerphones for cultural ideas, because this isn't just a conversation that we're having on the street or in the same room. This is kind of preserving our thoughts at this point in time and how we want to express those, because anybody on the internet can go and listen to what two Chicago suburban guys are talking about,
Mm-hmm.
and it really, I think it defines what people around us are talking about or thinking about. And so being on a podcast, it's not just a one-time conversation. This is something that anybody can listen to next week or next year.
It is interesting that you say that, how people can listen to this stuff whenever. Every now and again, I'll look back at the episode list of the Culture Cast, the first version of this podcast that I had done with Zach,
Hmm.
and I look at the stuff because we started that in 2011, and I look back on it, and I'm thinking of like some of the episodes that we did then. I'm like, wow, that was interesting stuff that we were talking about that was popular then that no one cares about now. Like, who
Hmm.
remembers the movie Crazy Stupid Love? Nobody.
Yeah.
It's
And
just,
the
yeah.
it really puts a different perspective on these, because like Captain Ron, that was released in the 90s, but we
Yeah.
reviewed it in 2016. So
Yes.
it, it's given it a different perspective, and maybe in 3 years we can do a review of this podcast or something like that.
Yeah. We'll become so big that we'll start be reviewing our own podcasts.
Yeah, this one pathetic, but this one best.
Maybe that's what we should do for a future episode. Review other people's podcasts.
Yeah.
I don't know. Start shitting on other amateur podcasters to prop ourselves up.
Right.
The one arrogant thing you could possibly do as a amateur podcaster. But
No, we need to do a crossover podcast with somebody.
yeah, but we don't have friends in the podcasting world.
Yeah.
It would be awesome to do that, but sadly, it's not a thing.
Moving on to our next point is, why do we even care about culture, and why don't we just change our name to, the Gorehound and Nick?
I think one of the reasons that we care about culture is that everyone. Wait, back up. Are you talking about us in general, or like the society at large?
Oh, what was I thinking when I wrote that? Why do we care? I was thinking about Nick and the Gorehound. Why
Oh.
do Nick and the Gorehound care about culture?
I have two answers for that.
Yeah.
One, I think we care because that's where our interest lies. We like movies. We like nerdy things. We like just stuff in pop culture.
Hmm.
And so we like to talk about it. We like to discuss it.
Yeah.
But looking at it from a broader perspective, people like people, as I was kind of mentioning earlier, people are ingrained in culture, and sometimes it's movies, sometimes it's sports, sometimes it's art, sometimes it's philosophy. Whatever you want to do it, whatever your interests are, that's culture. That adds to the cultural pool, and people engage in it because it gives themselves a sense of identity. Do you ever see nerds on the internet like complain and bitch and moan because they either really like something or really hate something, and they need to let everyone know how much they hate it?
Yeah.
That's them trying to defend their cultural view. Someone might badmouth, I don't know, the Marvel movies, just to use an example. You will get legions of nerds who will beat the crap out of you verbally online because it's anonymous and it's easy to do that way. Because someone dares to mock Captain America or Iron Man or whatever. They take it personally because that's part of their identity. And
Hmm.
when people, attack it, if it almost translates into people attacking them. That's stupid that people take it that seriously, but there's that. But that is a case that does happen. Same thing when people mock political views, like, oh, you're a Republican, well, blah 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 blah, or you're a Democrat, well, blah 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 blah, and they start start gaining Facebook battles. I hate the
Yeah.
election season, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but because people look at those values, that morality, those political beliefs, and if people are mocking them or mocking their beliefs, it's like you're invalidating who they are. So,
Hmm.
and I kind of babbled on there for quite a while. What are your thoughts on that?
I know the Gorehound cares because he is proud of the human race. Simply put,
Okay.
I I I follow these directors so wholeheartedly because I like to see where they come and I like to see where they go because I'm thinking if I knew that guy and I was friends with him and I would see him like making all these movies, I'd be like, "You go, guy. I'm proud of you." Just like um if you were to go get a promotion, I would be like, "Nice job, Nick. You did a good job." Just because I like to see people make new things. I like to make new things. It's a way of constantly challenging ourselves to become a better person, to make life more fulfilling.
Hmm.
In the sense that um, it's not just a TV series; it's a work of production that a lot of people put a lot of time and effort in, albeit it is all about money.
Yeah.
But at the heart of this, somebody really wanted to make this happen, and it wasn't for money at the start.
There
You
was some
know,
element, some labor of love.
right? Where, like, I don't know if this is true, but I'm sure that when Ricky Gervais created the British Office,
Hmm.
maybe he worked in an office and had all these really funny characters around him, and he was like, I bet this would make a really good TV show. He wasn't thinking, let's make some money off
Hmm.
of my friends. Let's just do something that I want to do.
He
And
saw some potential that would be fun to make and everything else.
right, Kevin Smith is always talking about all of his movies now from here on out are just going to be about stuff that he wants to watch. And it's like, that's awesome because that's what I like to watch is stuff that I find entertaining and that isn't just all about, making a dollar at the end.
Hmm. No, I totally get what you're saying. There is definitely some labor of love that needs to be done when people put together some sort of some element of culture, some art, something. They're not going
Hmm.
to do it just because, and usually ones who do that, it's not nearly as fulfilling than some other effort that's put into it.
Hmm. Kind of like when people say, um, get paid for doing something that you like.
Mm.
I mean, I can honestly say I like what I do, and somebody pays me to do it. So I feel very successful and fulfilled at this point right now. And so me working is, put in a little bit of culture out there. This is what, companies are doing at this point in time. This is projects that are going on. This is my input into this. This is my way of contributing to culture. And at the same point, I'm, apart from culture, I'm making financial deadlines for myself. I'm living and getting money for it.
Living the dream. Yeah.
So what are your closing thoughts on what the F is culture?
I think culture is all around us. I think you can't escape it. It's part of what we are in terms of the collectiveness of our world, and culture is what you make it. It's part of our identity. It's who we are. It'll continue to evolve, and we as a human race are going to be better for us. When our race gets wiped out in the million years or whatever, and a million years later aliens come down
Hmm.
and to check us out, what all they'll know is what we leave behind as elements of our culture, and hopefully they won't be these idiots. But
Yeah, no, that's a good point because I've seen a few memes where it's like if aliens came down and they were to watch one video, it would be this one, and it's just like this really stupid and embarrassing video. But no, it's not a single issue. In the hypothetical case, the aliens do come down. There's a lot more than just one YouTube video that they're going to see. They're going to see you know, how much America has been built up, all the violence that's going down in the Middle East, you know, um, environmental problems, issues, or how great our technology is, or something like that. There's a lot that is going on.
I'm sure aliens are listening to our podcast right now, so we'd like to hear what their culture is like. So if you're an alien from the planet Ooglagla, then feel free to email us, and we'll be happy to get you on the show.
Yeah, you'll be our first other sentient being on our podcast, other than Nick and the Gorehound.
Yeah, I got nothing else.
All right. Well, I think you put it very succinctly. But yeah, that will do it for this week. This has been your latest edition of the All New Culture Cast. And until next week, I am the Gorehound, and
I'm Nick.
Have a good one.
Bye, everyone. You've been listening to the All New Culture Cast, where every episode is all new. Check out our blog, Zach and Nick's Culturecast, at znculturecast.wordpress.com, and find us on social media. Send us an email at nick.culturecast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your feedback, comments, and requests. Theme music by bensound.com. The All New Culturecast, a saltwater production, copyright 2016.
How are you doing today, Nick?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm happy that I'm podcasting.
You're always happy that you're podcasting.
Yeah, I am.